two.
Week 15 of the NFL season is here, and just as gamblers all across the country are starting to scratch their head in disbelief, some of the things that are going on are a little bit nuts. Bookmakers, in many cases, are laughing all the way to the bank. Steve Budin here, legend in my own mind, owner and operator of the largest sports betting analysis business in the world, and I'm joined each and every week by my partner in crime. He's never underrated, never understated, future handicapping Hall of Famer. They made a movie, Two for the Money, about him. You know I'm talking about Brandon Lang. What's up, B?
Long time no chat, my man. This is something we should have done a long time ago. But you know what? You could be late to the dance, but you can be the dance when you get there. So looking forward to having some fun and throwing out some info that people can use. And we're two pretty opinionated individuals, and I'm looking forward to sharing those on a much bigger level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So let's be clear. There are dozens of sports gambling podcasts to choose from, but none like this one. Nowhere you're going to find two better opinions that come from two more opposite sides of the spectrum. Brandon, hands down the most well-known handicapper in the industry. B, you're a household name, but only if that house is filled with degenerate gamblers like us who live this life and live and die with each photo finish. Me, on the other hand, I'm the creator of the offshore and online sports betting industry. I don't really look at players or teams or game film, and you know that. When it comes to each game, it's always me against the number. And what number? Always the Vegas spread, because that's what it's all about, B.
I'll tell you this. It's learning the business from your side of it. I want to sit here and tell you about a bad beat, and I want to tell you what happened. And Notre Dame USC a couple weeks ago, about to cover the number, 99-yard pick six the other way, and you're like, they didn't cover. Like, you're just so numbers oriented. I'm about the emotion of it, and that's the contrast. Since we formed a business partnership, I want to share gut level about the gut wrenching loss or the big time win. You're like, did they cover the number? Yes or no? So, it's always great.
Yeah, and look, and let's stay with that direction. And before we get into Sunday's NFL games, let's talk about the college football playoffs. 12 teams, could have easily been 16. Where do you stand with who made it, who didn't, and why, Brandon? Give us the insight.
It's really funny. When it came out that they were going to a 12-team playoff, I said they're going to need 16.
Right.
I said it. I said they're going to need 16. There's going to be 4 bona fide teams when it's all said and done that, if they were in, would potentially have a real shot at winning it all. And so now the 12-team playoff comes out, and you get the SMUs of the world and the Clemsons of the world. And on the outside looking in, you have Alabama. You have Ole Miss, both who played incredible schedules. You have South Carolina, who could have easily got in. South Carolina, of course, beat Clemson last game of the year. That's the third team that people say have a bona fide argument. And so now when you sit back, and I'm trying to remember what the fourth team is. I'm having trouble remembering who that fourth team is. It's Alabama.
Welcome
it's
to
South
the 50-50 club, buddy. It's good to be 50 years old.
Going to be 61, actually. But
I was trying to give you a break there.
Thank you. And I literally said Ole Miss and Alabama and Miami, the Hurricanes. Now, Miami, you go up to Syracuse, you win your last game of the year, you're in no matter what. You blow a 21-0 lead, you're not getting in. Alabama, you go on the road and handle your business at Oklahoma. Let's say Oklahoma beats you by 3. You're in. Which when you lose 24-3 at Oklahoma, you go to Vandy and give up 40, you're not getting in. Ole Miss last game of the year, all they had to do was go to Florida and win. They didn't. Lane Kiffin actually has an argument because Florida was playing tremendous football down the stretch. And, of course, last but not least, the team that's howling at the moon, South Carolina, who beat Clemson. They're the hottest team in the SEC right now with a magnetic quarterback. We're going to see him in a bowl game, and it's too bad because South Carolina was playing incredible. So a 16-team playoff, that would have worked. And listen, between me and you know it and I know it. It's all about money. That's all it is. It's all about money, how much money the NCAA is going to make, how much the TV contracts are going to make. They're prostituting these kids. So, yes, I'm glad the kids are getting paid, but I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the road they go to 16 teams. That's 4 more games they can line their pockets with cash.
Well, there's 60 plus teams, right, in the college basketball March Madness dance, right? And to me, one of the thing that makes March Madness so much more exciting than the format and layout of the college football playoff / tournament that they have is that, you know, you have the ability in college basketball for that underdog, you know, for that upset, you know, for that Cinderella team that kind of gets everybody's attention. You know, I don't think there's enough room for surprises in this format. I mean, I look at the college football playoffs and, you know, Oregon, right? Best team in the country this year. We might get to see a rematch with the Buckeyes from their 32-31 thriller. That was on October 12th. And then you have Georgia. You know, they had a tough schedule. They have a clear path to their third national championship shot in 4 years. So here's the question, B. Are you going to bet against Georgia's head coach, Kirby Smart, consecutive national championships in 21 and 22? I mean, again, no surprises, no Cinderellas. I think this championship game, you like to say, you know it, I know it. Like, everyone knows it. It's Oregon, Georgia. I think Oregon beats Georgia. I also think they cover. Do you agree or disagree?
I don't think Georgia gets there.
Wow.
Their last game of the year against Georgia Tech went into Athens, went into Georgia. It was the 7-8 overtime game.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech had the game won. Quarterback made a couple wrong decisions in the 2-point conversion. I think Georgia's vulnerable. They match up well against Texas. They beat Texas twice, but as their schedule goes, they're vulnerable. I don't think so. I think the team to watch out for is Notre Dame. After that loss to Northern Illinois, they just keep getting it done week in and week out. Very anxious to see the Indiana-Notre Dame game. I believe Ohio State is done. I think they're going to have their hands full with Tennessee. I don't see Ohio State saving Ryan Day's job after the loss to Michigan as a 23.5-point favorite. I think when the smoke clears, other than Georgia being able to beat them, Texas is lethal. They just are. They just can't beat Georgia. That's all there is to it. They can't beat Georgia. Georgia has their number. They beat them twice. I'm going to tell you. And also Georgia, my problem with them is Beck, their starting quarterback, probably is not going to be able to play if he can. He's injured. That freshman came in and looked great against Texas, but now it's a whole different ball of wax having a negotiated football game. So when the smoke clears, I think Oregon is in the driver's seat. I had them last Saturday night. I don't see anybody beating them. They are impressive, the team speed. No matter who they play, I don't think it matters. Oregon's your national champion.
All right, so we agree on that. Maybe the road is a little different for you. Great take on that. But moving right along, let's shift gears from college football to the NFL. Let's take a look at last week, what I call the worst beat on the street. B. What was it and why?
Well, it was $1 million gambler put $3 million at Circa on the Eagles money line.
Yeah.
To win 442,000.
Yeah.
And you're a bookmaker. And so Circa offered very nice numbers to try to get some Carolina money on the money line. If Carolina was like they plus 760, I think Circa offered plus 900. I don't think nobody bid on it.
Right.
If you watch the game, that gambler, whoever he was out there in La La Land, is watching Philadelphia struggle the entire way. Philadelphia had 89 yards passing in the game facing Carolina. Carolina has the ball, down 6. They're at the Philly 40-yard line. There's 50 seconds to go. And Leggett, their best receiver, Steve-O, with 50 seconds to go, drops the touchdown pass at the 4-yard line to probably give them the outright win. You're a bookmaker. Imagine Circa's owner sitting there that close, the feeling, the emotion, the this, the that, the drop. And now you're paying out a ticket of 400 and something thousand. So granted, the risk for the gambler, stupidity, to pick up a measly 442,000. Bad beats, there really wasn't a whole hell of a lot on the card as far as bad beats, really bad beats. You could say Dallas and Cincinnati on Monday night. Cincinnati was laying 5.5. You had Dallas plus 5.5. They get a block punt. All they got to do is fall on it, kick the winning field goal. A Dallas player touches it, gives Cincy the ball. Cincy's now driving. Field goal wins it. And with a minute to go, they get a breakaway 38-yard touchdown for the 7-point win, covering the 5.5. Much like Cincinnati at the Giants earlier this year on Monday night when they did the exact same thing, running out the clock, up 3, laying 5.5, and got a breakaway touchdown run inside the last 50 seconds. 2 bad beat covers if you win against Cincinnati, especially Monday night with Dallas.
Yeah, and poor Jet fans, they had to endure, another time where they lost to Miami. Watching that game, it reminded me of couldn't lose the game, up by 8. Miami comes right down, scores. Of course, they get the 2-point conversion. Of course, they win the game. Artie Lang said that he used to be a Jet fan, right? And then he switched to girls. And then he said he switched back to the Jets. You know why? He said that girls will fuck you sometimes, but the Jets will fuck you all the time. Yeah. And I thought that was one of the greatest lines I ever heard in my life.
Which, by the way, you just brought that up. The line on that game was 5.5 pretty much the entire way, went to 6 late. And, of course, the touchdown in overtime is the bad beat for anybody but the Jets plus the points and sitting there with their, in their hand, losing by 6 with the we won the coin toss, we score. So that could have been a bad beat, too. The Dallas game and the Jets game both getting the same number, 5.5, 6, and didn't cover the number.
And here's the interesting thing, right, is that one man's bad beat is another man's miracle of the season.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And
absolutely.
Yeah, and ultimately, it's that bad beat that's the heroin that is the greatest high for a gambler, and it's not just, and obviously it's a downer, right? It's pain and it's suffering, but it's the greatest single high that a gambler experiences. And why? It's because the only thing that will cure that pain is redemption of a winner. It's why we're in the business we're in today. It's because gamblers look to us from all over the country for that redemption. Sometimes we can deliver, sometimes we can't, but it's seeking that redemption in the end of the day that keeps a gambler coming back.
Yeah, I told you I had USC plus 7.5. They're about to score to tie the game. 2.5 minutes to go. They throw a 99-yard pick six. No cover. Gut-wrenching. Bring you to your knees.
Yeah.
Just can't. Your stomach is just in knots. 2 days later, Monday night, you got the Denver Broncos minus 6.5 against Cleveland. Cleveland's driving down 2. They're going to score. You get a pick 6. You're up 9. Cleveland takes it right down to the 2-yard line with 40 seconds to go. 1st and goal at the 2. You're going to get backdoored again. You're going to be brought to your knees again. Yeah. You're going to bend over, grab your ankles, and take it like a man. And what happens? Jameis Winston throws the pick and gives you the miracle from God. Yeah. So again, on my knees with USC, praising Jesus Christ, Allah, the Easter Bunny, after Jameis Winston on Monday night. It's exactly what you said, Steve-O. It's the heroin. It's the addiction. It's why we come back every single day. Unbelievable.
No, it really is. And let's just sidestep for a minute here, B. And this is what you own here on any other sports betting podcast before we get into the thing that everybody came here for, which is the weekly winners. We're going to take a look around the country, and we're going to talk about what the fuck is going on. And there's so many stories this week, Brandon. I was trying to pick one out for us to talk about. My favorite, New York subway hero Daniel Penny, found not guilty by a jury of his peers. To me, this was a breath of fresh air. After all the lawfare that Trump went through over the past year, it's the same city, New York, the same DA, Alvin Bragg. It was good to see a jury decide finally. That's the way our system is supposed to work. I know you're in New York, B. Have you been following that case at all?
Let me explain something to you. My wife has got me so into watching the news. It's pretty funny. My entire life, I never paid attention to the news. Had no reason to. And with her, I'm up to date on everything. And the prosecutor in the state of New York is an African-American.
Yeah.
And he's not very well liked.
Well, you're talking about the DA, Alvin Bragg.
Yeah. So for him, if Alvin Bragg is white, this doesn't even get tried. Right. It was a race card from the very beginning. Yeah. And he lost. Yeah. And when my wife said to me, what do you think when the jury went to deliberate? I said, there's no way you're going to get 12 people to unanimously agree that this was premeditated or he did this on purpose or whatever. You're going to get 1 or 2 that's going to be no way. Sorry, I'm not happening. So we can sit here all day, but it's going to be a hung jury, but it's not happening. I told her he's not going to be found guilty. It will be humanly impossible unless you had 12 black jurors on that jury pool. It was impossible.
and I don't even think that's the case, and let me tell you why. And I believe what you're saying. I think what you're saying is that there's a lot of racial motivation going on from the prosecutor and from the DA.
100%.
And the
100%.
reason you know that is because every time they referred to Daniel Penny, they referred to him as the white defendant, and every time they referred to the man who was killed, they referred to him, as the black victim. So you imagine that it's so blatant that they were trying to, the raciality of what they were trying to do. Now they charged him with 2 offenses, right? That he killed the guy on purpose, right? Which is one thing. Which this guy is a Marine. He was trained to kill. If he wanted to kill this guy in a chokehold, he could have killed him in under a minute.
Knock in 2 seconds, done. See it.
That's what they do. That he's a killer. He clearly did not try to kill him. He clearly tried to do what by New York law is legal, which is to subdue him. Now, here's the part that you're watching the news, but they didn't report, is that black people on the scene helped him subdue this gentleman, because they were being threatened by him. Black people in the jury actually, witnesses, black witnesses actually came to the jury, and they told the jury, hey man, this guy was protecting everybody. It was black people that ultimately came to the aid of Daniel Penny. And we're so far beyond this whole racial divide thing, but that's the only thing these guys run on. And the greatest thing about this case, and then by the way, they brought a second BS charge that it was the actual chokehold that killed him, and it was an accidental death type of thing, but still charged him with that. So they charged him with killing him on purpose. They charged him with killing him not on purpose. They were charging him with anything they possibly could. All the instructions from the judge was to try to motivate the jury to find this guy guilty. But at the end of the day, like George Floyd and like these other scenarios, he had so much drugs in his system that it just, remember, it's beyond reasonable doubt. That's how our legal system works. And there was nothing, but this case, like you said, you are 100% right, would have never been brought if we were talking about, unfortunately, somebody, a black hero, saving us from a white, victim. This case, we wouldn't have seen it happen. And this is par for the course these days, and we see it. This is what the media runs on. It's absolutely crazy, but this is what they didn't. The biggest mistake that they made, thank you Jesus, right, was they had a jury, like you said. And that's what they didn't have for the Trump cases. Imagine Trump is going through this stuff, and no jury. Pretty much the trial's over before it starts. It's a complete show trial. It's a complete kabuki theater. There is no jury. There is no defense. You have a gag order. You're not allowed to make a defense. You're not allowed to say anything. We're gonna sit here. We're gonna lay out the facts as we see them, and then we're gonna charge you. And you know what?
Not to segue to Trump. Everything is so overly racially sensitive now. It's pathetic. It really is. And we live in a country that has gone in such a bad direction. The dad of this kid that got killed, who basically allowed the kid to grow up in foster care, foster homes. Hey, Dad, where were you? Oh, but now I have a chance to get in front of the mic and say, oh, my God, I miss my son. My son. Right. That made me want to throw up. Yeah. You had mentioned George Floyd. If George Floyd was white, Minnesota would never have been burned to the ground. If those 5 police officers could have just gotten George Floyd in the car and shut the door, we're not even having a conversation about George Floyd. He goes to prison or goes to jail, and that's it. How 5 police officers couldn't get one African-American human being in the back of a police car to let him sit outside so they can be filmed. Unbelievable. And that just is comical to me. But at the end of the day, all's well that ends well. But I'll stand by what I just said a few seconds ago. We as a country are so overly sensitive racially right now that everybody is walking on eggshells, from police officers to African Americans themselves. And I don't know, Steve-O, this country's heading in a very bad direction, but we got the right guy in the White House to get this thing heading in the right direction. Pretty good. I feel pretty good about that.
I mean, to me, I have a lot of hope. I mean, I can tell you that I don't look at polls. I don't watch the mainstream media, but I've worn my MAGA hat for 8 years now.
Yes,
And,
you have.
and when I started wearing it in airports in Los Angeles, in New York, in what you would consider, blue paradise, right? People had, about 7, 8 years ago, people would come up to me. Half the people would say, "Oh, you're Hitler. Shame on you." And the other half would say, "Nice hat," right? But in the last couple of years, since they've been, doing what they were doing to Trump, with all these trials, and everyone's identifying with it, regardless of race or creed or color, 99% of the people that came up to me said, "Nice hat." And the other 1% just walked by. They said nothing.
Yeah.
We went from 50-50 to 90-0, and that gives me a lot of hope. And it wasn't, listen, it was black people that voted for Trump. It was Spanish people that voted for Trump. It was Chinese people. It was women. It was gays. It was straights. It was everybody. So we are the unity party. And there's a lot of reason for hope, because in that divide that the media pushes, where does that get us? As humanity, it gets us nowhere.
Did you hear what Bill Burr said? Bill Burr went out on stage and goes, "Well, ladies, he's beat you twice."
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I met Trump back in the late '90s at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and he's sitting there at a table talking to Brian Gumbel, and we'll go from here right into football. And Brian Gumbel says, and Donald Trump says, Katie Couric's pissed off at me. And Brian Gumbel said, "Why?" "I was on the Today Show, and she said, 'Hey, Donald, is it true you only date models?'" And Trump looked at it and said, "Katie, you got it all wrong. I only date supermodels."
No, Trump is raw. I mean, he's the most popular person in the world, and rightfully so.
Yep.
I mean, he's a special guy for a special time. But okay.
Oh, and listen, we got a pit bull as the vice president, another former Marine. I think we're in for a good little 12-year run here, Steve.
All right, so now I'm going to let you in on something that anyone, they'll listen back to this show and they'll say, "Oh, man, even Alex Jones didn't even say this." Like, you know what I mean? Like, Joe Rogan didn't even say this. This is going to break right here on Two for Your Money, and just write it down, and remember who said it. When Trump is done with his 4 years as president, God willing he doesn't get killed or poisoned or something like that, when he's done, he will become the Speaker of the House. He'll have Vance as president, and as Speaker of the House, controlling that checkbook with Vance, who he mentored as president. Trump will have more power than he ever had in his entire life, and he will be able to do the things that he never was able to do with the power of the purse and his guy as president. That's coming. Wait for it, because if you think Nancy Pelosi was able to take us to the dark side, watch Trump take us to the light side as Speaker of the House. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Well, listen, if I was married to Nancy Pelosi, I'd have turned gay.
Yeah, I think her husband did. So I think you're absolutely right about that. All right.
And that, when I tell you my joke, when we get to the joke, oh boy, it's a good one, brother.
All right. A little foreshadowing there of what's to come. But let's get into what everybody came here for. Let's get into the Week 15 winners. Now, straight up winners have covered the spread 82% of the time so far this season.
Crazy.
168 winners versus 37 losers. You can throw in 3 ties with that one. If you're a dog bettor, dogs are 2 games under 500, 98 wins, 100 losses, 3 ties. But the most amazing stat this season comes from the straight-up winners versus the spread in primetime games only. 40 wins, 8 losses, and 1 tie. How amazing is that stat? In primetime matchups, buddy, if you just pick the winner, you cover the spread.
Just goes to show you, playing blackjack with John Gruden at the M Casino when he was head coach of the Raiders. It was a Monday. We're just sitting at a $25 table. He sits down, starts gambling with us. It was epic. And we start talking football. And he doesn't talk gambling. He just talks about favorites and underdogs. And he says, if you get an underdog in prime time, he says, bet them to win the game outright. He says, because they are going to fight like they've never fought before. And that goes into what you just said. The straight up winner in these primetime games are dogs that have won outright. And you're right. Just pick the straight up winner. And you got to be careful, because sometimes those dogs are going to fight like their mom's being held hostage.
Do you know that In teasers, 3 and 4 team teasers, 80% of the time, the team that covers the teaser spread covers the regular spread.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So
That's
it's
absolutely correct.
never beneficial to bet a teaser. You should always bet straight bets. But anyway, I don't want to digress. So now that we've covered who's actually covered up until now, let's go to Week 15 and let's get down to business. First game up be the Battle of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh at Philly. Phillies -5. Steelers 10-3. Travel to face the Philadelphia Eagles 11-2 in a clash between two division leaders. Pittsburgh, fresh off a 27-14 crushing of Cleveland. Philadelphia eked out a 22-16 victory against Carolina. Both teams looking to solidify playoff positions as the season heats up. What do you say, Mr. Lang?
You know, I really loved Pittsburgh plus this number. Now Pickens is listed as questionable with that hamstring game time decision. I still like the Steelers plus the points. I had Philly 2 weeks ago at Baltimore. What a great pick that looks like now after watching Philly just throw up on themselves last week against Carolina. Flat spot for Philly, obviously, at home. They haven't played well to cover the number at home this year, so they just played down to their competition. Now they got to play up. The alarming thing for me is you're an NFL team with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, with 2 receivers in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and you can only put up 98 yards passing in an NFL game. I don't know if that's something that you can get fixed in a week when now you're playing a better defense in the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're a hard team to blow out. They're going to be gritty. They're going to be grimy. They're going to run the football. They're going to control the clock. Their defense is going to play fundamentally sound. The number's 5.5 more than a field goal. I got to believe Pittsburgh's going to go in here and punch them in the mouth and hang around that number, getting more than a field goal with a better defense. I got to roll with Pittsburgh plus 5.5.
So if you're listening out there, just so you know, me and Brandon don't discuss these games before we talk about them on the show. So we don't know which team we're on, and we don't craft our opinion based on that. So we could be on the same game on every game. We could be on opposite games. But if we are on the same game in every game, you might want to bet the other way. But I'll just tell you in this game, Brandon, Steelers, they've won 7 of their last 8. Philly just won their 9th straight over Carolina. These are 2 hot teams, right? They're firing on all cylinders. I do think this game could come down to the last possession. If I had to guess, I would say that Philly wins this game, but I think Pittsburgh covers the spread. So we are both on the Steelers. There you have it. Next up, it's Buffalo at Detroit. Detroit is -2. Total in this game is 54. Bills 10-3 taking on the Lions 12-1 at Ford Field. It's a marquee matchup. Bills coming off a narrow 44-42 loss to the Rams. Lions beat the Pack 34-31. Both teams have high octane offenses, and this one could break the scoreboard. B, what do you think?
You know, it's so easy to get enamored with Josh Allen.
Right.
And it's so easy to get enamored with him when he plays at home. In the snow against the Bills, when they played the Niners, and everybody after that game was ready to put them in the Super Bowl. So they went out to L.A., and the line maker says, let's make the Bills a 4.5-point road chalk. They just beat the Niners in the same division, and they went out there, and the red flags were there. Well, B. Lang, what kind of red flags? The red flags when they went into Houston and lost to the Texans. The red flag when they went in the Ravens and got blown out. And now here the red flag is they go out there and their defense gets absolutely shredded by a Rams offense that if you had to rate the Rams offense on a scale of 1 to 10 consistently over the year, yeah, they've been banged up, but I'd put them at about a 6, maybe a 7. Miami went in there and beat them, and their offense looked horrible. Philadelphia went in there and stopped them all night long. But Buffalo goes in there, and now everybody's ready to put the Rams in the Super Bowl, the team in the NFC nobody wants to play.
Right.
You're looking at the Detroit Lions offensively on a scale of 1 to 10, they're a fucking 12.
Right.
And yes, defensively, they're banged up. Yes, their defense could not stop Chicago in the second half. Yes, their defense had trouble stopping the Packers. But when their defense had to get a stop, their defense got a stop. Right. The problem here, if you like Buffalo, and amazing to me, and I love your take when it comes, the line was 2.5. Buffalo loses the way they did to the Rams, and you had early money pushing that number down to 2 against Detroit. Steve-O, I'm sorry. I think the Bills defense has some problems. And if they couldn't stop the run game of the Rams and they couldn't stop the Rams offense, I don't see anything in 6 days that's going to lead me to believe that they're going to be able to stop Detroit's offense. And with the number under a field goal, I don't see Detroit losing the game. Give me the Lions minus the 2.5.
So the line is moved by public perception, right? It's not moved by, actuality. It's not some, mathematician sitting behind a curtain somewhere with some type of algorithm deciding what the final score is going to be and basing that line on the final score. It's totally a free marketplace, and it's based on what the customers out there are betting and what they think. The line to a gambler should look like the number that they think it should be, not the actual number. When you go down in college football with all the games, in the NFL with all the games, see how many of the games actually fall on the number. Not many, maybe one. And if that one does, everybody goes, oh, those bookmakers are geniuses. No, that's the one game that the gambling public got right. Yeah. They got every other game wrong. And the Lions, who for decades they call in Detroit the lie downs, right? Because they've been through so much pain with this team. It's just hard for gamblers to wrap their head around the fact that this team is so good. But I think the key in this game is the Lions' ability to control the clock. And they, like you said, they do capitalize on defensive stops. They actually have a decent defense. They got a solid run defense. I think that's going to make the difference. By the way, if my ex-wife was named after a football team, she'd be the Bills. So I don't think I can bet the Bills ever. I'm going to go with the Lions here, minus the points.
Yeah, right. That alimony was a stinger. Next.
Still paying it. 11. Most people get 10 years. I got 11 and a half years. It was like,
oh, my God.
Yeah. And Alvin Bragg had nothing to do with it. So, I can't even claim that.
No.
My fault. My mea culpa. Anyway, next up, Green Bay -3 at Seattle. Packers 9-4 face off against the Seahawks 7-5 at Lumen Field in Seattle, Washington. Seattle comes into the matchup on a 3-game win streak, and they've won 3 out of their last 5 games prior to their game against Arizona. Green Bay enters the game on a 1-game losing streak, but they also won 3 out of 5 games prior to that. So, BL, how do you see this one?
I literally have watched Seattle the last 3 weeks. They had no right beating the Jets, yet they figured out a way to do it. They had no right of beating the Cardinals up in Seattle, but Kyler Murray with turnovers let him off the hook. And then last week back in Arizona again, they figure out a way to win. And so it's funny when you look at Geno Smith, he can look so bad. I mean, so bad. He can look like that girl in the bar at 2 a.m. when you're hammered and you just want to get laid. And she looks a lot better than she does. And then all of a sudden, she puts on some makeup, little leather skirt, little latex. And you're like, I'm good to go. And that's Geno. He starts making plays to Metcalf. And next thing you know, they're winning ball games. This team's got some mojo right now. They really do. And coming back home, getting 12th man, hard place to play. Many say hardest place to play in the NFL. I just don't think you can go against Seattle right now playing the kind of winning football they're playing right now. I believe Green Bay is due for a bad game, and I think it's here. Give me the home dog plus the points in this game.
All right, Packers 6-0 against the spread, the last 6 in the NFC West. They had a little extra prep time, a little extra rest. Josh Jacobs versus the Seattle run defense got 4.7 yards per carry. Seattle only 3-4 straight up this season at home. Only 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 home games. So you said it. Who do you want, Jordan Love or Geno Smith? Geno Smith is the type of girl in the club that you tell her to leave that latex on. Because when it comes off, oh, my God, it's a whole different look than what you thought it was. Love in the last 3 games, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Packers are averaging 33 points per game. We finally disagree about something. It took us an hour to get there, but I'm on the Pack minus the points.
Thank God when you said take the latex off, you didn't go transgender. Thank God.
No. We'll save that for next show.
Thank God. Amen. Hallelujah.
Yeah, and I stayed away from when we were talking about Trump saying that I hadn't seen a man beat a woman like that up since the last Olympics. But again, we'll get into that next week. Finally, last up.
That's good, my brother.
Finally, last up, it's Kansas City -5. at Cleveland. Chiefs are 12-1 this year after they defeated the Chargers, score of 19-17 in their last game. Browns are 3-10 this season after they lost to Pittsburgh, a score of 27-14 in their last game. So, what are you on, Brandon?
I'm done. I'm so done. I really felt KC at home -4 against a Charger team they had just beaten by 7 earlier in the year. This was the game they were going to get it going. This was the game where they were going to finally, look like the team we expect to possibly three-peat. And we just can't buy that ticket anymore. I believe that was their 7th straight non-cover. I believe that's their 14th game in their last 15 that they've won by 1 possession. We just don't get the team that covers the number anymore. We don't. You can't trust them. You just can't. Should have been a sell sign when they went into Carolina and struggled against the Panthers. They just don't cover numbers. It's that simple. And you keep riding them saying, this is going to be the week. This is going to be the week. This is going to be the week. And you turn the TV off going, well, I guess that wasn't a week. They just don't look right. They just don't look like they can blow teams out. Their defense can't make enough stops. And so with that being said, I can't take them until they've shown me they can beat somebody by double digits. I'm going to take the points all day long.
So you're right. The Chiefs can't cover a game, B. You're right. Also, they are on a 7-game losing streak at the betting window versus a 12-1 record straight up on the season, right? So they're not one of the teams that win the game and cover that we talked about earlier in the podcast. KC is the 2nd team historically with a 750 or better winning percentage to ever go on a 7-game losing streak against the spread. You know who the other team was? It was the 2020 KC Chiefs. Why is that? What is the reason that KC historically can't cover? It's because everyone bets the Chiefs. Everyone loves the Chiefs. Everyone rides the Chiefs. So the value, right, is always going to be to take the points against them. And nothing changes here. Give me the Browns plus the points. You're absolutely right. And, there are certain times, like, remember when Brady was playing, you said to yourself, like, if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose on. I'm either betting on Brady or I'm not going to bet, because if I lose, I can say, well, I had the best quarterback in the game.
Yeah.
But if I lose going against Brady, I can't forgive myself. Same thing here. Browns may not cover, but I can't forgive myself if I continue to lay the points with the Chiefs, and not cover. It just makes no sense. It's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And so I'm with you. I got the Browns here. And that'll do it for this week, buddy. But before we go, last but not least, it's the joke of the week. That is the segment we are in now. It's what we finish on every week. And you first, Brandon. Hit me with your best joke of the week.
Stuck on a deserted island, a sheep and a dog. It's about 6 months in. I got needs. And that sheep looks pretty good. So I get up. I'm about to mount the sheep. I almost got the tip in. Dog wakes up, bites me in my right calf, severs it. Takes me about a year to heal. So about a year and a half in now, and the sheep looks good. And I got the tip in. Dog wakes up again, bites my left leg. This goes on for 3 years. And finally, a big yacht pulls up, massive yacht pulls up, and the shuttle boat comes to shore. And off that shuttle boat came Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Oprah Winfrey, Whoopi Goldberg. They come walking up on shore, and I run to them like Tom Hanks and Castaway's beer, and they're, oh my God, thank God you're here. Help me. They're, whatever you need, we're here. Whatever you need. And I looked at all 4 of them and said, can you take that fucking dog for a walk?
I love that. All right. What's the difference between parsley and pussy?
No idea.
Well, no one really eats parsley anymore. And that will do it for this week. That was the first episode in the can. We'll see you next week. For Brandon Lang, I am Steve Budin, and we are Two for Your Money.